The Thing wasn't just a movie. It was a celluloid virus, a cinematic plague of paranoia unleashed on an unsuspecting public, incubated in the frozen wastes of Antarctica and born from cosmic horror. But behind the grotesque transformations and nihilistic dread, it was a deeply personal statement on the fragility of trust, a film fueled by a master director's love for classic horror and a desire to create a new, unknowable kind of monster. Before Kurt Russell ever torched a Petri dish, the director was channeling the ghost of Howard Hawks and the pulp horror of John W. Campbell, Jr., turning a story of invasion into a terrifyingly intimate monster movie. The hero they cast wasn't a chiseled action star, but a cynical, weary helicopter pilot who understood the film's suspicious heart and the world they built. It was a phantasmagoric landscape of Arctic dread, flamethrower-lit corridors, and a spider-headed creature that became an icon of the bizarre. These are 20 weird facts about The Thing, a film that explores the terrifying nature of identity and doubt, and proves that sometimes the most profoundly scary art is born from the most hostile realities. Some apocalypses start with a spaceship. This one started with a dog. Number 1. The E.T. Antichrist. When The Thing was released on June 25, 1982, it was met with a wave of critical revulsion and audience indifference. The film was a box office disaster, barely making back its $15 million budget. The reason for this spectacular failure can be summed up in 2 letters. E.T. Steven Spielberg's heartwarming tale of a friendly alien had been released just 2 weeks prior and had completely captured the cultural imagination. Audiences were in love with the idea of a benevolent visitor from the stars. John Carpenter, however, gave them the exact opposite: a hostile, nihilistic, and utterly terrifying parasite. Critics savaged the film for its bleak tone and graphic violence, with Roger Ebert calling it a geek show and Vincent Canby of the New York Times dismissing it as a virtually storyless feature. The timing was catastrophic. America wanted a hug from an alien, not a flamethrower fight with a shape-shifting monstrosity. Carpenter himself was devastated by the reception, which nearly derailed his career. Number 2. The 22-year-old FX genius who sacrificed his health. The film's groundbreaking and stomach-churning practical effects were the brainchild of Rob Bottin, a special effects prodigy who was only 22 years old when he began work on the film. Bottin was so dedicated to creating the most grotesque and imaginative creatures possible that he essentially lived on the Universal Studios lot for over a year, working 7 days a week without a break. He would often sleep on the sets or in the locker rooms, pushing himself to the absolute limit. This intense dedication came at a severe cost. By the end of production, Bottin was suffering from extreme exhaustion and had to be hospitalized by Carpenter himself. The result of his sacrifice, however, is a menagerie of horrors, from the iconic Spiderhead to the chest-chomping defibrillator scene that remains one of the greatest achievements in practical effects history. Number 3. The Man with No Arms. One of the most shocking and memorable scenes in the film is when Dr. Copper attempts to revive Norris with a defibrillator, only for Norris's chest to transform into a massive mouth that bites off Copper's arms. To achieve this horrifying effect, the crew hired a real-life double amputee who had lost both of his arms in an industrial accident years earlier. The actor wore a prosthetic mask molded to look exactly like actor Richard Dysart's face. Fake arms, constructed from wax bones, gelatin, and rubber veins, were attached to him. When the hydraulic jaws of the Norris Thing clamped down, they ripped away the prosthetic limbs, creating a moment of visceral, unforgettable horror that would have been impossible to achieve with any other method. Number 4. The sole female voice. The Thing is notable for its complete lack of female characters, a deliberate choice by Carpenter to heighten the sense of claustrophobic masculine tension. However, there is one female voice in the film, the voice of the chess computer that Macready plays against and ultimately destroys with a glass of scotch belongs to actress Adrienne Barbeau, who was married to John Carpenter at the time. Her uncredited cameo as the calm, logical, and ultimately defeated machine provides a brief but memorable counterpoint to the escalating human paranoia. Number 5. The unsung hero of The Dog Thing. While Rob Bottin was the undisputed maestro of the film's effects, the legendary kennel scene, where the Norwegian dog reveals its true form, was so complex and demanding that Bottin, already overworked, had to call for backup. He turned to another future legend of the industry, Stan Winston, the man who would later bring the creatures of Aliens, Jurassic Park, and Terminator 2 to life. Winston and his team stepped in to help create The Dog Thing, contributing significantly to one of horror cinema's most iconic sequences. Out of immense respect for Bottin's overall vision and workload, Winston refused to take an official credit for his contributions, wanting all the acclaim to go to the young artist who had poured his life into the project. Number 6. Forging Antarctica in a heatwave. The film masterfully creates a sense of bone-chilling cold and isolation. While some exteriors were shot in the frigid landscapes of British Columbia and Alaska, Many of the interior scenes were filmed on soundstages at Universal Studios in Los Angeles during a summer heatwave. To achieve the authentic effect of the characters' frozen breath, the sets were heavily refrigerated down to near freezing temperatures. The cast and crew were forced to wear heavy winter parkas on these cold sets, then step out into the sweltering California heat between takes, making for a physically grueling shoot. The commitment to this frigid realism is a key component of the film's oppressive atmosphere. Number 7. The Italian maestro's unwanted score. In a rare move, John Carpenter, an accomplished composer in his own right, did not score the thing himself. Wanting a grander, more European sound, he hired the legendary Ennio Morricone, famous for his iconic spaghetti western scores. However, the collaboration was fraught with misunderstanding. Morricone composed a lush, orchestral score and a separate, more minimalist synthesizer score, unsure of what Carpenter truly wanted. Ultimately, Carpenter felt much of the music didn't fit the film's tense, paranoid mood. He ended up using only a few of Morricone's pieces, most notably the pulsing, heartbeat-like main theme, and composed several of his own minimalist synth cues with his collaborator Alan Howarth to fill in the gaps. Ironically, Morricone's score was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Musical Score, a nomination that is now considered utterly baffling given the score's iconic and beloved status. Number 8. The Lost Scenes of Paranoia. John Carpenter shot several scenes that were ultimately cut from the final film to maintain its relentless pace and tension. One of the most talked about deleted scenes featured Macready discovering a blow-up doll among the personal effects of Futch after he disappears. A grimly comedic moment that was meant to highlight the profound isolation and desperation of the men. Another cut sequence involved the discovery of a frozen, eyeless corpse at the Norwegian camp, which was deemed too much of a reveal too early in the story. While these scenes would have added more character texture, their removal helped solidify the film's lean, focused, and terrifying final cut. Number 9. The real flamethrowers. The flamethrowers used by the characters in the film are not props. They were fully functional military-grade weapons. The cast had to undergo training to handle them safely, but their use on set was still incredibly dangerous. In the final climactic scene, Kurt Russell threw a real stick of dynamite. He misjudged the distance, and the resulting explosion was powerful enough to knock him backward, a moment of genuine peril that made it into the film. The real danger and palpable heat from these weapons add a layer of visceral intensity to the film's most fiery confrontations. Number 10. The Secrets of the Norwegian Camp. The film opens with the frantic pursuit of a dog by a Norwegian helicopter. The dialogue shouted by the Norwegians is not gibberish. It's actual Norwegian. A linguist was hired to ensure authenticity. For audiences who understand the language, the entire plot is spoiled in the first few minutes as the shooter yells warnings like, "Get the hell away! It's not a dog, it's some kind of thing. It's imitating a dog, it isn't real." Furthermore, to save on the budget, the destroyed Norwegian base seen at the beginning of the film is actually the main American outpost set, which was blown up for the film's climax, and then simply redressed to look like the Norwegian camp for the opening scenes. Number 11. The Misunderstood Monster. One of Rob Bottin's most brilliant contributions was conceptual. Originally, John Carpenter envisioned a single, definitive monster. It was Bottin who conceived of the thing as an entity with no true form of its own, a perfect mimic that could transform into an amalgam of all the life forms it had ever absorbed across the universe. This concept is what makes the creature so terrifying. It isn't just one monster, but an infinite potential for monstrosity. Its goal is not malicious slaughter, but pure survival and propagation, operating on a level of cosmic biology that is utterly indifferent to human morality. Number 12. The Blood Test and the Hidden Wire. The blood test scene is a masterclass in suspense, and its centerpiece effect was achieved with a surprisingly simple practical trick. To make the blood jump out of the Petri dish when touched by the hot needle, special effects technicians ran a very fine, unseen wire up through the bottom of the dish and into the fake arm of the actor. When the needle touched the blood, a crew member beneath the table simply pulled the wire, yanking the blood upward and triggering the explosive transformation. This elegant, low-tech solution created one of the most tense and effective sequences in horror history. Number 13. A near-fatal bus ride. The production was plagued with challenges, but one of the most dangerous moments happened before the cameras even started rolling. While transporting the cast to the remote filming location in Stewart, British Columbia, the bus they were on skidded on an icy road during a snowstorm. The vehicle slid perilously close to the edge of a cliff, nearly plummeting over the side. Had the bus gone over, the film would have lost most of its main cast in a real-life tragedy, and a masterpiece of horror cinema would likely have never been completed. Number 14, the title from an abyss. The film's iconic opening title sequence, where the title appears to burn itself through space onto the screen, was a lo-fi practical effect of ingenious simplicity. The crew built a small set consisting of a smoke-filled fish tank with the title card placed behind it. Over the front of the tank, they stretched a sheet of plastic garbage bag. To create the burning effect, they simply ignited the plastic bag, and the way it melted and revealed the title through the smoke created the eerie, otherworldly final result. Number 15, A Wounded Hero. Keith David's portrayal of the imposing and suspicious Childs is a fan favorite, but the actor delivered that powerful performance while hiding a significant injury. Just before filming began, David was in a car accident that left him with a broken hand. Not wanting to delay the production or lose the part, he showed up to set with his hand in a cast. The wardrobe department improvised by giving him black gloves to wear throughout the film, which successfully hid the cast from the audience. If you watch closely, you can see he often keeps his injured hand out of frame or holds it stiffly. Number 16, the unfilmable source material. The film is based on John W. Campbell, Jr. 1938 novella, Who Goes There? While Carpenter's version is celebrated for being more faithful to the source material than the 1951 film The Thing from Another World, screenwriter Bill Lancaster still had to make significant changes. The novella featured 37 characters, a number far too large for a film audience to track, which Lancaster wisely whittled down to a more manageable 12. He was also responsible for inventing some of the story's most cinematic moments, including the iconic blood test sequence, which was the very scene that convinced John Carpenter to direct the film. Number 17, the nihilistic ending that almost wasn't. The film's famously ambiguous and bleak ending, where Macready and Childs sit in the frozen ruins, unsure of each other's humanity, was deeply unpopular with the studio. Universal executives and the film's editor pleaded with Carpenter to shoot a more optimistic conclusion. A happy ending was actually filmed where Macready is rescued and taken to another base, where a blood test proves he is human, confirming his victory. Carpenter, however, fought passionately for his original vision, believing the story's core theme of paranoia demanded an unresolved, nihilistic finale. The test audiences hated the downbeat ending, but Carpenter stood his ground, preserving one of the most debated and perfect endings in cinema history. Number 18, the casting carousel. Kurt Russell's portrayal of R.J. Macready is iconic, but he was far from the first choice. Carpenter and the studio considered a host of other actors, including Nick Nolte, Jeff Bridges, Christopher Walken, and Sam Shepard. For the role of Childs, actors like Isaac Hayes, Carl Weathers, and Ernie Hudson were all in the running before Keith David secured the part. And for the station commander, Gary, Carpenter considered his escape from New York star Lee Van Cleef, as well as Jerry Orbach and Powers Booth. Russell was actually the very last actor to be officially cast, joining the production just as second unit filming was already beginning in Alaska. Number 19, the Blair Monster Left Behind. In the film's climax, the final creature, known as the Blair Monster, is a massive, chaotic amalgamation of forms. The effects team, led by Botten, poured an enormous amount of work into this final puppet, which was a huge and complex piece of engineering. They also enlisted stop-motion animator Randall William Cook to create a sequence where a smaller, more agile version of the Blair Monster would erupt from the floorboards. After countless hours were spent on the meticulous stop-motion animation, Carpenter decided it looked too fake and out of place with the rest of the film's practical effects, and he cut the entire sequence from the final movie. Number 20, the resurrection of a masterpiece. The Thing wasn't just a flop, it was a cultural pariah that nearly ended John Carpenter's career with major studios. Yet like its titular monster, the film refused to die. Through the rise of home video and cable television, the film found a second life. Audiences, free from the shadow of E.T., were able to appreciate the film on its own terms. Its masterful tension, its unparalleled creature effects, and its profound philosophical dread. Critics began to reassess their initial harsh judgments, and its reputation grew exponentially over the decades. Today, it is widely regarded not just as a classic, but as one of the greatest science fiction and horror films ever made, a testament to a singular artistic vision that was simply too bleak and too brilliant for its time. It doesn't just ask you to watch a story about a monster. It injects you with a paranoia that never truly leaves, a cold, lingering doubt that makes you look at the person next to you and wonder,